Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
And this is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together, we've watched a movie, we talk about it. It's really quite that simple. And in this episode, we are rounded out our trio of episodes featuring movies that are set in 2020 that obviously were made in the past, and the 2020 was the future at the time. And before we even get to what this movie's about, I just want to tell my experience, because we kind of really flubbed this whole theme, because the first one that we did was Pacific Rim. And Pacific Rim had a scene at the start set in 2020, and then it jumped ahead 5 years or something like that. I was like, oh wait, so there was 5 minutes in 2020 and the rest wasn't. Real Steel, which was the second one, again, we got these results, just Google told us, hey, these are set in 2020. And Real Steel, I think, was all set in 2020, but I don't think it was ever really mentioned or acknowledged or really talked about. It just, if you were paying, I think there was some details that told you it was 2020, but it's not a big deal. So it kind of felt like, well...
Yeah, it wasn't obvious.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a thing. So this movie starts, and after the opening scene, there's a text comes up saying, oh, it's May 2020. I was like, oh, great, finally, one that actually says out loud, it's 2020, it matters. And then the very next scene, it says 13 months later. And I'm like, if I do my math correctly here, that means that the rest of the movie actually takes place in 2021.
Or 2022. I mean, maybe the first scene's in December of 2020. Oh, never mind. It said May.
Yeah, it specified. It may have been June or July, but it was definitely the middle of the year.
Yeah, it was definitely summer months.
So, because we're having a barbecue for a start. I mean, it's a very summery thing to do.
I guess maybe when you looked up the list, you accidentally typed in movies whose preface is in 2020.
So there was a moment when it came up saying 13 months later, because I thought we'd finally hit one that was genuinely in 2020, and they referenced it was 2020, and immediately,
we botched it.
Yeah, immediately. So we should have really done this next year, because it's mostly 2021, but
it'll be, yeah.
Here we are.
It'll be next year soon.
So, I guess that
we
just
sort of botched it, yeah.
I mean, 2020 is a year botched it for, everyone. So I guess it's in theme of the year that we couldn't quite do it properly. So there we go. So Mission to Mars is a movie
consistent with our show.
How dare you? This is an immaculate show. We have done nothing but gold since day one. How dare you? Mission to Mars is a movie, which obviously the title makes it sound obvious, but it's not as obvious as I think the movie makes it sound, and I'll get into that when we get into the plot. But I wasn't sure if I'd seen this, because this came out around the same time as a movie called Red Planet starring Val Kilmer. And they're both movies about going to Mars. 5 minutes out of this movie, I was like, oh no, I definitely saw Red Planet, because I don't know any of this.
I actually have seen this one. I recognize this one once it got going. I have not seen Red Planet.
Okay, we'll do Red Planet someday, but for now, we're on Mission to Mars. Because I was expecting a movie about getting to Mars for the first time, and I don't think it's a spoiler, because we're starting spoiler free, of course we always do, and we'll warn you halfway through before we go into spoilers. When it just cut to 13 months later, and oh, they're already on Mars. Wait, what? It was that easy? They're just on Mars? The journey there was nothing? And what's so weird about it is I thought, okay, there was such a big deal in the opening scene about who's getting to walk first on Mars and how special that's going to be, to just cut to oh, we're already on Mars. No big deal.
Yeah.
But at least I thought, okay, the character who really seemed to care about it, Gary Sinise's character, I thought he didn't go, right? He doesn't get to go to Mars till later in the movie. And I thought, oh, they're going to make a big deal about him because he made such a big, because he has that moment at the start when he presses his foot in the little sand pit, the kid's sand pit, as if he's emulating, because he was going to go to Mars on the mission, but his wife got sick and he pulled out. Yeah. But it also cuts that. It skips that too. When they arrive on Mars, they're already there, and it's like, wait, what? No, what? What? Wait.
Yeah. We start in medias res on Mars.
Yes, it's very odd, and some of the things it glosses over. And yes, anyway, so the movie's not so much about getting to Mars in the first sense, because once on Mars, Don Cheadle and his crew encounter a weird storm, we'll just call it for now, which causes some chaos and a lot of casualties happen. And it becomes something of a rescue mission where on the World Space Station, not the International Space Station, it's the World Space Station in the future.
It is the International Space Station with an extra 2001 little spinny ball thing at the end of it, or wheel.
But it's like, okay, so the rest of our main characters are going to mount a rescue mission. So it's about them going to Mars to try and rescue Don Cheadle. Which is funny because in my head, when this was all sort of revealing, I thought, this is like an inverted The Martian, because we're following the crew going, and they don't know if he's alive or not, so they're just kind of like, oh, we hope he's alive. And I'm like, the opposite of this is The Martian, where he's on Mars and we're following him, like, you know, how does he science the shit out of this? That's The Martian.
I know. I wonder what movie would have been more interesting.
Well, that leads me to my question, because this movie definitely goes places towards the end. There's some big things that it does. They definitely, because I mean, obviously we're in space, we're traveling to another planet. That's just inherently science fiction from the start. I think, you know, when I looked at this movie and they're all wearing NASA uniforms and stuff, there's almost this implication that it's going to be more of a grounded sci-fi movie, in the sense that, oh, I'm expected it to be like sort of like focusing on going to Mars like we got to the moon, and sort of treating it with this reverence. And it's technically sci-fi, but doesn't necessarily feel like full-on sci-fi, because it is trying to be more of a it's just maybe a realistic take. It is not. Yeah. Like, within the first 10 minutes, there's like vortex sandstorms in Mars that are like killing people and shit. Like, it's full-on sci-fi. No question.
Yeah.
So, with that all said, Tara, how do you feel about Mission to... Which, by the way, directed by Brian De Palma. Let's not gloss over that. Right.
Yeah.
Tara,
a director we both really like.
Yes. And he's prime. How do you feel about Mission to Mars?
Well, it's not my favorite De Palma film. I actually think he's a bit of a weird director for this movie, like an odd choice. And it's ambitious. It feels a little tonally off. There's a lot of character interactions that I don't find realistic or grounded at all. There's a lot of like couples and romance scenes that feel like they should be in a different movie. But I do like a lot in it. Like, I like how, you know, some things are very predictable and some things, like, it goes places. It almost reminds me of a lot of movies, actually, but it reminds me of Ad Astra a bit that way, where it's like, wow, I didn't expect this curve. And there's a lot of movies in this. I mean, it's no Rocket Man, but I think it's sort of a fun watch.
There's a lot of stuff in there that was making me think of movies, but specifically movies that came later. And it's not that I think this inspired anything, because I definitely don't think it did. But there's definitely some, and I guess it's just, one of my key complaints about this movie is just how much of it is just kind of like tropes of the genre. And we talked about the mismatch of tones a second ago.
Yeah, I think it's tropes from other genres too.
But I
brought into this.
I was really feeling the mismatch of tones. I think the score especially is so inappropriate, like 99% of the time.
Yeah, it's Ennio Morricone too, and I actually really like listening to the score on its own, but I don't like it in this movie. I think it's trying to go for that it's like for epic feeling, because you get Ennio Morricone if you want to make a big epic. And
well, no, I'll tell you what it's going for. It's going for Apollo 13. It wants this kind of emotional.
They even got Gary Sinise, who like wasn't going to be on the mission in the beginning.
Yeah, like it's going for that like heroic, like kind of ceremonial brass, but it does it at times that are so weird. Like, it does it at times when it should be a tense scene. And the music's sort of going, look at these heroes, these great American heroes, like in space, they're doing their thing. Like, this is a tense moment where they are on the brink of death any second, and you're treating it like it's like like the landing home. That's what the music's telling me. The music's telling me that they're landing back on Earth to a cheering crowd. That's what the music's telling me.
I think this music could be interchangeable with any Western epic, honestly, and it would be appropriate. Like, it would fit. It does sound like Morricone's Westerns to me, like more so than even his other De Palma stuff that he did, because he did The Untouchables also, which is more of a gangster movie. And that probably, well, it is a gangster movie, but that probably would have fit in there as well, that score. This, like, I think the music would be great to listen to on its own, but I don't think it works well in the film.
It is constantly jarring with the scenes that are actually happening in the movie, constantly. And it's not even just like one or two scenes. Once I started noticing it, it was almost every scene. Any big scene where something was happening, especially any scene that was supposed to be dangerous, tense, or they were under, like, you know, some kind of, like, because it's a movie, you know, any movie like this that treats space as a dangerous thing, where they're constantly having problems, they're constantly almost dying, and they're on the planet and they're almost dying a lot. Like, there's a lot of scenes where it's supposed to be this, and there were scenes where the music's doing this heroic thing, and I'm like, no, if anything, I should just hear heavy breathing. I should hear the emptiness of space. That should be like a tense, like, visceral moment. And instead, the music's giving me da-da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. It's like,
you don't think it's going a little bit for the 2001, like, sweeping waltzes with the ships and stuff? They're trying to sort of replicate that by getting Morricone to do something epic.
I mean, if that's the plan, they're doing it in all the wrong scenes. The scenes in 2001 that do that aren't the scenes where there's the, you know, the scenes towards the end of 2001 where he's running around from Hal aren't the ones that are accompanied by the waltz music. It's the scenes, you know, where he's jogging, you know, and stuff like that. It's just the quiet, you know, slice of life moments that are doing that stuff. Or it's the dance of the various, you know, the ships in the space station, like, disconnecting and stuff, where it treats it like a waltz, like it's a dance. No, here it's doing it in scenes where I'm like, no, this should be, like, this is the scene that I'm thinking of, like, because another movie this made me think of a little bit in some ways was Interstellar, and, like, yeah, the music that plays in Interstellar where he's trying to reconnect you know, he's trying to dock and they're spinning, like, there's a scene in this where I'm like, yeah, the music from that scene would work here, with the pounding and the organ going, right? That would work in this scene. The music we've got is like, da-da-dun, dun, dun, da-dun.
Yeah, it's, I don't want to, I love both these people. I love De Palma and I love Morricone, but I don't think either of them fit science fiction.
That's a fair statement. I mean, I don't know if it's because Brian De Palma's just not fit for science fiction. You know, Brian De Palma in his prime, like, I would have loved to have seen what he'd done with it. Like, in the 70s, what does a Brian Palma 70s science fiction, like, in space movie
probably has
look like?
Travolta and Nancy Allen in it.
Yeah, and it may be great even. But this is the thing. It's not like this movie's an isolated case. De Palma, unfortunately, by this point in his career, had diminished, right? Or at least was the start of his diminishing.
Well, yeah, I mean, only a couple of years before he did the Mission Impossible movie, which is a movie I really enjoy and set off a franchise that, you know, arguably got better. But okay. I think that first one was really fun.
I don't think Mission Impossible is good. I don't think it is as close to his prime, though. Like, at the risk of upsetting you here, Mission Impossible is a good movie. I don't think Mission Impossible is on par with 70s and 80s De Palma. Like, I think there's a divide there.
I don't think so either. But I don't think it's, like, as far as blockbuster action set pieces go, I mean, it's tense, it's fun, the characters are good, the dialogue is spy-like and action-y, and it doesn't come off as, like, horrendous.
But this is the thing, though. Like,
you know,
I don't know if this was what he did next. Probably not. It was probably something in between. But do you not, like, get the sense that he became more Hollywoody? Because this movie does feel really generically Hollywood, like, in a really bad way. Like, there's scenes in this where it just feels like it's doing a Hollywood thing. There's a scene early on with using M&Ms to, like, make a point that then is, like, dramatically flashed back to later on, that made me laugh out loud because it was so bad. Like, there's legitimately laugh out loud moments in this that are
there's
bad.
There's some flashes of Cosmos in this with, like, the slow zoom. And then the sweeping score, like, coming up. Like, I was getting some Cosmos vibes every now and then, and the Eminem scene was one of them.
Yeah, and they didn't go all in with, like, something like the hats, but there is actually something that's kind of almost in the ballpark. There's almost something. Yeah, he did Snake Eyes between Mission Impossible and this, but
I don't think I saw that. That's the Nicolas Cage one, right?
Yeah, and it's watchable. And Gary Sinise is in there, like, you know, he's in that movie. But honestly, yeah, this is definitely the turning point. I think is this, like, late 90s, early 2000s, where he just because after this, like, I mean, I haven't seen some of these films, but Black Dahlia from 2006 was woof. I saw that in theaters and it was bad. And that was a movie that should have played to his strengths, because
this is one of his lowest rated movies, though, from what I saw.
Oh yeah. I mean, Black Dahlia is definitely worse than this, believe it or not. Black Dahlia, and I think Black Dahlia is even worse because it's almost like him going back to his genre. He's going back to a thriller, right? And because that's what he does so well. And the fact that still failed, it kind of felt like, okay, like a lot of directors from the 70s, 80s, you kind of floundered a bit in the 90s here or there, but once you got to the 2000s, and I'm saying this about directors I love, but De Palma, John Carpenter's another one where 70s and 80s Carpenter, like, full of absolute classics and gems. Just and
don't give him a budget, I guess.
Yeah, but you get to 2000s.
Some people are just born to stay indie.
In fact, hell, what is about Mars? Because, well, I've not even seen Ghosts of Mars, but that's a John Carpenter, like, that's his, like, big, like, not his last film, but that was kind of the one that just about put the nail in the coffin of his career. He did do that one, The Ward, I think it was called, like, it was a good few years later, but, like, Mission to Mars is the one that left the impact of, okay, he's lost it. Again,
that's a shame.
I've not seen it. It is a Mars movie, so
it's on our list, I'm sure, then.
We'll do it,
unless it's a horror film.
I think it's more sci-fi, but I mean, I'll look into it.
Whatever, we'll flip a coin.
Well, I'll look into it. So Brian De Palma, because there's very little in this that feels De Palma. There's one or two small moments where the camera will do a little, like, tracking shot where I'll go, oh, that felt a little De Palma.
Yeah, I like the set pieces a lot, and especially at the end. Like, I think the last maybe 20 minutes of the movie, although there are scenes where I'm just like, it's inappropriate music, I do still like what I'm getting in the film.
I'll give it this. It makes some bold steps towards the end. It does some really wacky out there stuff, which is definitely more wacky than anything I was expecting going into it. I think some of the set pieces are kind of rough, and again, music's inappropriate. They feel really Hollywoody. Like the moments where characters have to sacrifice themselves or something. It feels like a really Hollywood version of these moments. I hate to, like, go into criticizing, like, the physics in space too much, because I'm by no means an expert, but there's definitely times in this where I was like, I don't think it works that way. Like,
yeah, I know what you mean. I did read in the trivia that they had, like, NASA consultants, like, when I don't know if it was for the creation of the film itself, like if De Palma talked to them, or if it was just during the writing process of, like, we want this to be as accurate as possible. So say in 2020, how can humans get to Mars? Based on the technology that we have now, it would take this long. You'd have to watch out for space debris, that kind of stuff. So apparently a lot of that is as accurate as they can make it. I don't know about the physics part. I know exactly what scene you're talking about, though. Yeah. I also did read that there was a different director attached to it. I don't remember who it was. And then De Palma got interested and took over the project, and there were some rewrites after that. So maybe it was more grounded from in the beginning, and then De Palma's like, well, I got to make a Hollywood movie, so we'll add this stuff in it.
I also think that where it goes at the end, well, I kind of like how ballsy it is, and it's probably got the most interesting looking scenes of the whole movie. I don't think the rest of the movie thematically sets any of it up. Like, it feels like it just comes out of complete nowhere, and
I think the characters are a little tropey.
Oh, they are. They are like, they're also really kind of boring and dull in a lot of ways, where all they really have going is kind of that generic Hollywood. They're likable, nice people, right? And they care about each other, and they're going to do this no matter what. And there's a lot of that sentimental thing of looking out into space and being like, I want to travel to the stars and do that kind of thing.
Yeah, Gary Sinise has lost his wife beforehand, and, like, even they're like they have, like, not a flashback, but they're showing a video of, like, a party scene, and it's all the same. It's like the same clones of people, of their personalities. Like, you're right. Like, everybody just likes each other, and it doesn't. That's not real life.
No, it's all a little bit too saccharine, a little bit too sentimental and sweet. And it's not that some of these ideas or some of these character tropes aren't fitting of what the movie needs or what can be in a movie. It's just that it's so devoid of any other layer that it just all comes off as a bit kind of hollow, and there's very little characters to kind of... engage. And obviously it's a cast of people who we typically like. Gary Sinise, Tim Robbins, Don Cheadle, Connie Nielsen, Jerry O'Connell's in there.
Yeah, he still has some of the baby weight too. I like it.
The baby weight.
Because he was a little fat kid in Stand By Me, and now he's like super lean guy married to Rebecca Romaine.
What's funny though is that he looks smaller, not necessarily in a skinnier way, but more in a, well, I guess it's still skinny, but I feel like in Scream 2 he looks bulkier, but that's like before this. Scream 2 was 97, so he really slimmed down in this few years between them, because that's the main thing I know Jerry O'Connell from, is Scream 2 of all things.
I know mostly from Sliders, the television show.
I never watched Sliders. Yeah, I hear it was good for 2 seasons and then fell off a cliff. But
I don't remember. I mean, I was young when it was on, so I just kind of. It was a fun show.
Yeah, because I remember what the sort of the esteemed actor in the show. I can't remember his name, but he was very vocal.
Johnny Davies.
Yes, he was very vocal about how bad it got after the couple of seasons because they fired writers or something. I don't know.
I see.
Yeah, so I can't. This movie's not good. I can't say it's good. There's just far too much wrong with it. That's mismatched. Bland, generic Hollywood characters. Visual effects that don't really hold up. So there's some genuinely laugh out loud moments that are because they're bad, because they are like, and I'm thinking the M&Ms or even when Dr. Pepper saves lives. I don't mind product placement, because honestly it's actually more distracting sometimes when everything's like a fake brand, or it's like, give me a beer, or that kind of like weird thing. But when the camera shot lingers on the floating like astronaut bag of Dr. Pepper that still has the logo on it, like why has the logo on it? Why would they make the Dr. Pepper logos for their astronaut bags? Like, are they just sponsoring spaceflight? Like, what's going on here?
I don't know. I think they did have soda in space. I think they do have like bags of soda though.
I mean, I'm sure they probably do, but do they make the effort of branding it? Is it so that when they're doing their calls down and they put some of it on the news sometimes, maybe and we've been drinking Coca-Cola. It is the
I don't think I didn't notice. It was very obvious. Like, all right, it's Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper
First
and M&Ms.
Of all, gross. I am not a pepper.
Oh yeah, I don't like Dr. Pepper either. I think it's disgusting.
Disgusting.
I mean, M&Ms are alright. I like M&Ms well enough, but
I used to, but they use milk.
The regular ones I'm not. I mean, the regular ones are fine. They're very edible, obviously, but the crispy ones.
Peanut is the best.
Well, peanut's good. Crispy's better, but you don't have crispy.
Yes, we do.
Do you? Okay. All right.
I don't like them.
Crispy's the best. The salty caramel ones are alright. Peanut butter is obviously good. We don't have peanut butter, but I've tried them. They're good. How could they not be? I mean, it's peanut butter.
Peanut butter. Chocolate. Yeah.
Anyway, let's just get off, because this is leading down a dangerous tangent.
There is a funny scene that I thought was just super odd. I don't think it's that much of a spoiler, but like, we were talking about how they show the footprint in the sand to be like these iconic moments of man getting to a place that should be impossible, like the moon, and now Mars, a big deal, right? And the only thing that we get is, for some reason, the second crew decides to plant an American flag. Yeah,
didn't the first crew already do that? That's a bit weird.
I don't know, and it just has this, sweeping epic score. I'm like, seems like they have other priorities right now. But that scene in particular felt like someone in the producers' roundtable raising their hand saying, we need to have someone putting the American flag up, though.
Honestly, what's funny is that we will eventually get to Red Planet and The Martian and these other things, and I'm like, one of the things we do on YouTube is a little bit playlist for the subgenres, so you can go check out our aliens movie reviews subgenre or space movies or whatever. I feel like there'll be enough for like a playlist that just says "Getting to Mars" movies.
Oh yeah, I mean Rocket Man's going to be on there. So
yeah, Rocket Man, Mission to Mars, Red Planet, The Martian. I'm sure there's a couple other ones, but those are the main ones that spring to mind. This to me says everything about two things: one, the decline of Brian De Palma, and two, the type of generic Hollywood movie that you got at the turn of the century. Because this came out in 2000. Yeah. This is, and it is really funny watching it now, and it's set in 2020, at least partially. And oh, that's 20 years now. This movie was it's, I mean, obviously it's just us saying how old we are, but like I remember watching new movies in 2000. This isn't like when a movie came out in like 92 when I was like really young. And I, like, okay, I was alive, but I don't really remember things from that time that well. But I remember movies coming out. I remember Gladiator coming out. I remember like these things coming out.
Yeah.
And being a big deal. So the fact that this is like, oh, this is set in the near future, and I was like, oh wait, shit, we're in that near future. And what was funny is watching it and looking out for like signs of the future. There's very little. There's like one line about how Tim Robbins'
cars.
Yeah, Tim Robbins' car is like a classic car with like, you know, a combustion engine, and they mention that they kind of go out of their way to avoid showing just about anything else that they use, just so they don't have to really like do future versions of it.
Gary Sinise pulls up in a future electric car, but I think it is an actual car that was made, and but like it was so limited that it's like a DeLorean. It would look like a future car if you saw it.
Yeah. The only other thing really is that on the space station you see them use sort of these clunky tablets, and it's that's one of those things where, okay, tablets are a thing now. This does look really clunky, but maybe you can sort of just buy that in your head as well, because it's in space. They build these big chunky ones to like be durable and to take a hit, and you know they're not meant to be sleek and stylish like the ones we buy for home.
Yeah, really, all of the future stuff comes from like you get shots of the International Space Station, but with added stuff to it. So it's got to be the future, because now they have a way to simulate gravity by having the hamster wheel attachment.
And it's not really that I'm saying that there should be a lot of like, oh, look at all these fancy made up future things that we have to show us in the future, but it does also feel oddly weird that there's just almost nothing that really tells us it is the future.
Yeah, it's hard to say this about a De Palma film, but there's no style to it.
No, I agree. There is devoid of style, which is weird because his biggest strength in all of his great movies is how stylish they are. Brian De Palma is a great example of a director, because you know, one of the phrases that gets thrown around a lot amongst critics and movie nerds is style over substance, and that's the sort of thing that I would say when I look at say a Zack Snyder movie. I would say that is style over substance, and it just doesn't work for me. I think Brian De Palma is an example where the style is so immaculately well executed that the style becomes the substance. And the way, like, you know, a scene in like Blowout or Body Double plays out with the tension, and the way that the shot's framed, and the cat and mouse between the hero and the villain chasing each other, that becomes the substance, and it tells a story through the actions and the camera work. Here, it's a generic looking movie with a generic score. And you know, I hate to say that because, again, it's, you know, Morricone, but it does sound like a generic score.
It does, yeah.
It's like, it's living proof.
I love him too. I love Ennio Morricone. He might be my favorite, like, of all time for composers.
This movie might be proof that it doesn't matter who it is. If you get a boardroom, like, to make the choices for a movie, they can wear down even the most talented of artists. That's
it's sad.
Yeah.
Or if Netflix says, here, take our money and make something, apparently that has the same effect on directors.
With the exception, the notable exception to that is Alfonso Cuarón, because Roma is still
Roma, apparently. Yeah, I haven't watched it, but
that's still right. That got a Criterion, and it's deserving. It feels like a Criterion movie you're watching it. That's the feeling you get from it. But no, you're right. There's a lot of other directors who they do a Netflix movie, and all of a sudden it's like, did you forget how to direct? What is this?
Wait, do like producers actually help?
What's going on here? This is odd.
Yeah, I wanted to like it. I just watched The Phantom of the Paradise, also another De Palma film, and I mean, if you want to talk about style, that's probably his most stylistic movie. It is a musical also, and it's like a horror comedy musical movie about rock and roll and the devil. So, I mean, that's probably as stylistic as you can get with De Palma.
Not one of my favorites, just because I'm not a musical guy, but I appreciate the weirdness of it, you know. But no, I mean, I love like 70s and 80s De Palma. I mean, one of the most positive reviews me and Connor ever did was of Body Double. I love Body Double, and you know, we've never reviewed it, but Blowout is really good.
Dress to Kill, the other Nancy Allen one.
In fact, we reviewed that as well. That one I vote Once Upon a Time. Also really strong.
Yeah.
You know,
and of course Carrie's a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, Tim just did that in streams last year, and I remembered it being good, but when we watched it last year, and it had been a long time since I've seen it. I was genuinely surprised. Like, this is actually even better than I remember.
Yeah, like the split paneling for like the horror scenes. Yeah, it's really good. Like, I love Carrie.
In fact, one of the things that I really appreciated watching it again was how good the music was. I mean, we'll talk about music so much in this one, but I didn't remember the music being such a great part of that movie. But watching it again, like, I think it's just a case of. I think as you watch more movies growing up, I mean, I say growing up, I just mean like in your teens or whatever. Like, obviously that's a big part of it, but even watching movies as you're going through your 20s and then your 30s, and I'm sure beyond and beyond, is that because neither of us know, of course, beyond those ages yet.
Hopefully we will one day.
Yes, hopefully. Breaking news: Peter and Tara hope not to die young. Yes, thank you. But I think. Your taste matures and you appreciate techniques a bit more, and you notice things. It's one of those things where if you show 5 random movies to someone who's never seen a movie before, they'll probably all seem really good because they've never seen the tropes, they've never seen things. But the more movies you watch, the more you recognize what's unique, what's generic, what's that. You build a database in your mind of taste, and it's different for everyone, obviously. But I think watching Carrie again, it was like. No, there's the artistry in the way this is shot and the music and the way it adds to everything just clicked in a way that it never, I'd always liked it, but I loved it when I watched it last year, so. Yeah,
that one's always been a favorite of mine and of my mother's, so we watched it a lot. It's just Halloween time it would be on. I know it's a great mother-daughter movie,
yeah,
right?
So what a weird mother-daughter movie. I mean,
we also love Mother Dearest.
I mean, I suppose when you get to that age, maybe instead of having the talk, just show Carrie. That'll explain everything.
Yeah. My mom and I were close.
What are they all throwing at Carrie in the shower, Mum? Those are tampons, honey. Those are tampons. They'll explain it. Don't worry. They'll explain it.
Hey, she's a horror movie fan. That's where I get it from.
That's a great movie, though. It's a great movie. Yes, it's one of those things where we talk a lot about having more diverse voices behind the camera. Whether that be a woman for a woman's perspective on a story like Carrie, or be a person of color for a story about that experience. Whatever facet it is. But so it was a lot harder to find. But every so often there were these examples of when a bunch of white dudes did actually make a really good story that was about something, in this case, this metaphor for the coming of age of a sexually repressed teenage girl. Maybe sexually repressed isn't the right phrase, because I mean that's sexually active, but I mean, she's so sheltered and coddled and abused and all this thing.
Her changes that are becoming dangerous.
Yes. And so it's all a metaphor, and that's what movies do. So it makes the best ones work, especially horror movies. Which
is why we wanted to root for this movie.
Of course, yeah.
Clearly we're fans. But oh well.
Oh well, indeed.
At least he gave us a great couple of decades.
Yes. So I guess we're a bit ready to go into spoilers. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for all the months. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They are all our $20 or more patrons, so that makes them producers. But you don't have to be a producer, you can support us for much less than that, can't you, Tara?
Why, yes. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MouthFuzzTV, and if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes of The Ace. And you cannot find them on YouTube, so please check it out. See if you want to watch Time Cop review or some Red Brown movies. We got a couple of Garrett Graham films, another of De Palma's favorites.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of stable of actors now we keep returning to. You got Garrett Graham, David Carradine, Red Brown. There's a little stable of B-movie. I mean, I don't know if B movies even the right term, maybe C movies more applicable, but a little stable of actors we keep returning to. It's quite interesting. In fact, an added benefit right now for the next little while, just to add on to this, is that because Tim's on paternity leave, the premium vote at the $10 tier has become the action movies experiment vote, and the reason why I mentioned that
you guys are stuck with me for a little bit longer.
Yeah. But the reason why I'm mentioning that specifically is because the episodes that we make of that will be exclusive to Patreon as well at the $1 tier. So for that $1, you also get access to those action movie reviews, which will be one a month. The first one should be within the next couple of weeks. We're building up to it, but those are about to start.
That's right.
So that'll be like an additional. So if you like me and Tara talking about movies, even if it ends up not being, even if you like the idea of us talking about sci-fi sometimes, then although the first one's actually kind of sci-fi anyway, but that's neither here nor there.
Our first one was for Tony Scott movies. Tony Scott, Denzel Washington collabs.
Yes.
And the the science fiction one.
Yes, Deja Vu was the winner. So that's coming soon. But that's again more stuff at the $1 tier. You get access. The voting for that's at the $10 tier, but you get the episodes at the $1 tier. So if you want an extra content, there's stuff there. So that's kind of making up for the fact that there's no Screams bonus episode for the next several months. So enjoy. Also, if you obviously if you can't support us on Patreon, that is cool. Hit the like button. Liking is super important on YouTube, and it helps YouTube spread us out to more people and us find a bigger audience. So never underestimate how important that like button is. It's so easy. Just click a button, and you've done it, and it's like yay! You know, the evil has been defeated. I don't know what the evil is in this case.
Maybe Gus.
He's too lazy to be evil. He's chaotic neutral at best.
Oh yeah. At like 3 a.m, that's when the chaotic part comes out.
Oh, I know that pain. I have 3 of the buggers. Remember, I know that pain all too well.
No, thank you.
So there you go. So full spoilers then for Mission to Mars. So as we mentioned, there's a quick barbecue scene where the whole point of this scene is basically to set up the idea that Gary Sinise was supposed to go on the mission. He's trained for years with his wife because they were going to set a couple up, and him and his wife were training together. But his wife got sick and died in the last year or so, and he is basically opted out because he didn't want to commit to more tests. You know, he was ready to go, but he couldn't do it after the death of his wife. So he's still going up to the space station. He's still going to be like an integral part of the mission, but just not actually going to Mars. Don Cheadle and the crew are going on the first wave.
Gary Sinise sort of just walks straight from the Apollo 13 set onto this movie. He's the same character.
He kind of you wonder, he probably was cast for that reason. Maybe it wouldn't surprise me. And Tim Robbins is kind of heading up the second wave, and it's him that's going with his wife. They're going as a couple who have trained to go on this mission. Which is upsetting all the other wives, because all the other wives are all like, oh, we're all getting left behind. You get to go with your husband.
I think it's interesting that NASA would want to send a couple on a trip like that. Just for the isolation and loneliness of it. Send a couple.
That makes sense. If anything, I'd argue why not send just all couples? So there's no, send 2 or 3 couples as a team.
Yeah, I don't know. There's the couple, there's the younger single guy, and then I don't know, the third wheel. I'm trying to think of who went in the first mission.
The first mission was Don Cheadle, the other woman.
Oh yeah, it was like a French couple.
Yes, and was it French?
Yeah, they were French.
Okay, they were French. I'm just probably confusing it with because the guy in charge on the space station is he Russian or?
He's German.
German, okay, yeah.
He's uncredited too.
He's got a pretty big role to be uncredited for.
I know. I don't know why he's not credited in IMDb anyway.
He's got some sort of dispute.
Yeah.
He wanted his name taken off of it. He's like, I'm livid about this. This is terrible.
Yeah. I'm sure the rest of his filmography is amazing.
But it comes to one of the key things we should mention here, because it does come back up later. This is one of the cheesy things that comes back up later, is when Sinise is kind of sort of saying, it's okay that I'm not going. You know what? Tim Robbins here, he's been dreaming of this since he was a kid. He read all the science fiction books. He's a total nerd.
Yeah, Flash Gordon.
He wears Flash Gordon, like a little Flash Gordon ship on a chain around his neck. And they're kind of laughing and joking about it, but this does come up at the end, this Flash Gordon chain. So...
And it's super easy to predict who's not going to make it.
Oh, yeah.
From this barbecue scene. Just the way they're setting up the characters, Don Cheadle's like, man, you know, I wouldn't have gone. I would trade my place with your wife, you know. It's not important to me to go to Mars as it is for you to have your happiness again. But you're like, okay, so clearly Gary Sinise is going to go to Mars. So something's going to happen to Don Cheadle.
Yeah, something's happened to someone.
Yeah, I mean...
Actually, if anything, what I thought was weird about the barbecue scene, because it's doing this thing where it's not quite a winner, but it kind of presents itself as a winner where it's sort of darting around all these people. And there's sort of a joke where one of the guys who goes on the first wave, who we never really get to know him that much, but his one trait is that he's young, single,
he likes the ladies.
And he's trying to like get laid before he goes to Mars. So he's basically saying, oh, you know, I might never come back, so I mean, I could, you know, use a special night before I go. And the joke is that by the time the camera comes back round to like another part of the barbecue, he's actually already sitting down with someone else, because the first time fails, so he's already with someone else trying to do the same thing again.
Yeah, and the reason honestly, like, he kind of comes off like super pervy. I'm glad like the women are just like, no.
Oh, sure. But the reason why I think this is weird is not the joke itself, or I guess whatever. It's mildly humorous that he's, you know, trying to use this, right? It's that I thought because they gave him like 3 bits in this opening scene, so I thought, oh, he's going to last a while. I mean, I expect him to die. It doesn't seem like a character's going to make it to the end, but I didn't expect him to die in like the next 5 minutes. I felt like he was set up to at least be a personality that was around for a while. So maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's good that they made me think he was going to be around and then off them, but...
Yeah, I guess so. I sort of knew something was going to happen to Captain All-American Flash Gordon, but just from how he was being set up as well, with the love, his love of his life. I don't know how long they've been married. I would guess 3 days by the way that they're acting. For an older couple.
a lot of dancing, yes, a lot of maybe just you know, training for space flight and being in space just, you know, rejuvenates the fire.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yes. What's more of an aphrodisiac than, you know, weightlessness?
Yeah, but you don't want to get pregnant at 0G. That can probably really mess up your body. Or baby.
I don't know, maybe she's into it. She's like, ah, what a weird space baby. What a weird space baby.
Yeah. I wonder if that would... I mean, they have artificial gravity in a way, so maybe they would be fine. But
and if the baby survives, we'll call it Ripley.
Oh yeah,
obviously. So but yeah, we cut ahead 13 months, and the big thing that happens is that when they're investigating stuff on Mars, Don Cheadle's there with the first crew that have went, and essentially this sort of storm kind of happens, but it's like it's got a mind. It's, you know, so there's this like pyramid of sand kind of forms, and there's like a vortex, and the woman dies first by a giant rock, because there's a lot of like basically a lot of sand and rocks are starting to like sort of be sucked into this, and so it's going past them, and eventually a big rock just hits her in the face and like goes into the, you know, into the helmet and kills her. You know,
there's a lot of brutal deaths in this scene.
Yeah, there's like a really brutal one where the last guy to die, because Don Cheadle of course survives, or at least he survives longer than everyone else. We don't know if he survives, you know, in theory, other than he's lives long enough to send a message after this. But we, you know, past that point where it's, you know, it's up in there, is he alive? I always expected he would be, because it just makes sense that the movie would do something with him later. But but the last guy to die in this scene, he gets sucked into essentially what looks like a tornado at the top of this like vortex, and it spins him around until it just rips all of his limbs and head off.
Yeah, you could see like as the helmet is going round and round, you could see like his skull starting to like poke out of his skin, and then just it's all red, and then the limbs get torn off. It's a pretty brutal death. It's
brutal. I kind of want to love it, but you know, it's 2000 CG, so it's not the best looking.
I thought it was all right. I thought that was a decent death.
Not the best looking, but hey. So everyone else like, we have to go and save him. Like, you know, it'll take months to get there, blah, blah. Okay, we'll do a launch. Yeah. And Tim Robbins like, no, I'm taking Sinise with me. We need to go, because he's trained. He's the best there is. He's coming with us. And again, I thought it was weird how we didn't get a scene of him finding out he's going to Mars. Like, we just cut ahead, and they're already like halfway there. They're already on the ship.
They're more than that. They're almost there.
Oh, no, sure.
We cut to them like 173 days into the trip, which is a half a year.
Yeah, well, the point I'm making though is that, you know, it's like, I was like, where's the scene of him like finding out that he's going to Mars? Because I thought he might even like try and decline, and like Tim Robbins, no, you're the best for this. Like I was expecting a scene of him like,
or like a tear or something. Like, I'm going to do it for my dead wife.
And I know that we've said that a lot of this is cheesy and generic, and maybe that sounds like it would be cheesy and generic, but okay, if you do it just the straight way and the way that we've just said is the obvious thing that comes to mind, for sure, it would be cheesy and generic, but it's really weird to skip over that beat. Like, maybe they're just skipping over all the emotional parts. Yeah, maybe I'd actually care about his journey a little bit and, you know, like set up this idea of him like longing for something, because when he finds out this information, it feels like it's such an important beat to skip over. And the movie does that. Like we say, we don't see anyone land on Mars. We always cut after the fact.
We do get the flag lifting.
We get the flag lifting, which just feels cynical and like, all right, whatever. Like I do genuinely wonder, is there like a 3-hour cut? Because this movie's just under 2 hours. Is there like a 3-hour cut of this movie that has all of the other story beats put back in that were taken out to get it down time? I don't know. Yeah,
it really does seem to like skip to just the middle of a scene, and because of that, the emotion's been taken out of the film, and maybe that's why these people are so boring to me.
Yeah, and this is the. Because they have the scenes where he's watching like the home videos of his wife and they talk about his dead wife and whatever, and they're supposed to be emotional, but we don't get a scene where it's just about him. And I think because it sets up this thing at the start, because the opening scene, because there's nothing wrong with the opening barbecue scene, when it sets up,
I wouldn't say so.
Yeah, when it sets up the idea that he was going to go, he spent 8 years of his life or whatever it was training for this mission, and then he, you know, in the last year had to pull out because of these reasons, and you know, maybe deal with the idea that maybe he feels guilty about getting to do it without his wife, and that's partly why he doesn't want to go or something. Like, give us some sort of layer there. So, but the fact that it sets all this up, and then, okay, it's very obvious that it's going to happen, that he's eventually going to have to go for whatever circumstance is going to present itself. To have them not have a scene where he realizes he's going or finds out that he's going, and have that emotional beat play out in his reaction is...
Yeah.
It's not even just like a mistake or just like a problem. It's like downright bizarre and... I don't know. It's baffling. It's a baffling choice.
There are a couple of those in this movie for me. There's another later on one with the motivation of the storm, I would say. Sure. That we'll get to.
Yeah. Before long, they run into some. There's like Jerry O'Connell gets like a little, you know, bit of asteroid or whatever, like through his hand.
Yeah, that was kind of a cool scene.
Yeah.
I mean, it surprised me.
Of course, this is where the physics and like some of the science of things might start to fall apart completely. This is where the Dr. Pepper saves the day, because basically they're losing pressure on the ship, so they all go into their suits. And I can't remember why, but Gary Sinise can't wear his helmet for some reason, so he's kind of slowly like losing air. And
it's because his helmet was damaged. I don't know if they had another one somewhere else on the ship for him.
He eventually got another one though, because they all go out in space like later.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But his whole plan, because they're looking for where the leak is and they can't find it, and basically what saves the day is that Gary Sinise basically gets the pouch of Dr. Pepper and just squeezes it out, the idea being that it'll go to wherever the hole is and it'll freeze on the outside, so there's like this frozen stick of Dr. Pepper like sticking out of the side of the ship.
Right.
For Tim Robbins, who's outside trying to patch it up. And
it's a clever, I mean, people do that in real life for like trying to find a leak in a system, like a water supply system. They'll put like a coloring agent in it.
Sure.
So you know if something is actually condensate or if it's leaking.
I'm not critiquing the execution of a plan here. I am critiquing the close-up of Dr. Pepper and just how it emphasizes that element of it.
Did you not want a little bit of soda after you saw that scene, though?
I cannot say I did, no. It did not put me in the mood.
It was so icy cold.
Nor did the DNA strand of M&Ms that Jerry O'Connell created in the air. Yeah.
I don't hate the female character in the movie, but I do sort of hate her in this scene, because I hate the way she's written in this part. Simply because she's with Jerry O'Connell when he gets the hand pierced by the meteor.
Okay. The hand. I thought it meant the D. I was like, she wasn't in the DNA scene. That was Gary Sinise comes up and steals the M&Ms.
No, she's sitting next to Jerry when the meteorite goes through his hand, and they see where it came through, because his blood like sort of just goes and pools over where the hole in the bulkhead is. So she knows that that's a way to find whether or not there's a hole somewhere in the hull. So when she's with Gary Sinise and he gives her the pouch to squeeze, because she's like in the middle area of the hamster wheel part of the ship, and she's like, what do you want me to do with this? You're like, you saw the blood do the exact same thing. Like, why wouldn't you have this idea?
She's there to ask the question, so he'll explain to us what's going on. That's the purpose.
Classic ladies. Well, not just that, but like, he's dying and she's like, Jim, you really should use your air. And he's like, just squeeze the pouch. She's like, why do you want me to do that? Like, oh my god, she's the worst in this scene, and she's just poorly written in that part. I mean, the rest of the movie, she's capable. She doesn't really ask any questions that I can remember, so that her husband can explain things. It's
fair to say that she, in this case, is used to just be for the audience to ask why something's happening, even though she should know because she trained for 8 years just like everyone else did.
Well, plus she was there the first time it happened with blood.
Oh yeah, sure, but even without that, like, you know, she comes across, it can come across as being stupid because, like, no, they all trained for the same amount of time for this. This isn't, you know, super complex stuff. But on the other point, though, I think it's fair to critique how she's written throughout the movie, because the purpose of her character is to make us care when Tim Robbins dies. The purpose of her character isn't for herself, it's because of what she means to him. Because her entire thing is like, okay, so they're so romantic, they kiss all the time, she wants to let
She always wants to dance.
Yeah.
Why don't you dance with me?
And they dance, you know, before they get to Mars where things are going to get rough, they start dancing in the, you know, the spinning part of the ship, and it
means nothing to me.
Yeah, you know, it's all just here so that we care when he has to sacrifice himself.
It's all just telegraphing that, okay, Tim Robbins is not going to make it.
Yes. So it's easy to be cynical about it, and it's fairly critique it, because again, to be fair, all the characters come across as poorly written. The reason why I think we're focusing on this here is because the way that female characters have been poorly written in these sort of generic classic tropes really sticks out, because the men are also boring and cliched and generic, but at least boring and cliched and generic for the men still write them as like the heroes, or the point, I guess.
They make the right decisions.
Yes.
Yeah. So
that's the whole thing. But anyway, so the ships, they think they're about to land, or to initiate, you know, going down. But what they don't see, what the camera points out to us, is that this, and it's weird that they don't check for anything else, to be honest, given that one rock got through the hull of the ship. It's kind of weird they don't think, oh, should we check, you know, because
I mean, they're at Mars.
There's a lot of the ship that they're not in, right? Because the ship goes quite far back. There's a big long part of the ship that they're not, generally speaking, occupying. So it's kind of weird that they never think to check their systems, or check the fact that, hey, by the way, are you leaking tons of fuel, perhaps? Or, you know, because that's what we see. We see the camera go back and...
No, well, there is no fuel inside of it until they are landing. That's when they fill it up with fuel.
Well, something's leaking.
Well, yeah, it doesn't leak until they start their descent, because then they prime it by filling it up, and that's when the jet fuel starts to come out.
Okay, sure, yeah, but you see it leaking, though. Once this all starts happening, you see it coming out.
Right, but when Tim Robbins is out floating in space, it's not leaking then.
Oh, sure, no, I'm not critiquing, because you see it's not leaking before that. We see all the holes, we see the scratches and the damage. Why?
I know, and Gary Sinise just went through Apollo 13.
It makes them come across as really stupid when it's like, oh, because one tiny rock is all you get in space. You always only get one tiny rock. And I'm not saying you can just get one tiny rock, but maybe there was a couple more. Maybe there was 2 or 3 rocks.
The whole ship on the side of it has like streak marks on it. Like, they got bombarded with more than one. And I mean, Tim Robbins even said so when he's up there. He's like, I need to check the ship for more. And then Jerry O'Connell's like, no, come back because we have to descend.
Yeah, and what happens almost instantly when he presses the, initiate, descent, the back of the ship explodes and they're dead in the water. Pardon the phrasing.
They have to gravity their way out of this.
Yeah, their whole plan is that they've got like a resupply thing that's got a landing pad in it, like on orbit, and they're like, oh hey, we can get over there. It's only about a kilometer away or whatever. So they just sort of go out. They've got the little thrusters, and they're going. The four of them, and they've abandoned ship, and they're going over.
Seems like a bad idea in space.
A very bad idea. So correct me if I'm wrong, right? And I'm sure we had this exact same conversation at Astra, but I'm just going to do this again. Correct me if I'm wrong. In space, in a vacuum, if you're propelled in one direction, this no matter how little it is, because there's nothing like in a vacuum essentially. The second that there's any like propulsion in the opposite direction or anything that stops your momentum, you would just stop. Am I correct in my thinking there?
No, I don't think so. What would stop you?
Like if something stops your momentum, right?
Okay, yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah,
I know there's not typically something there, but I like because the scene in Ad Astra we complained about is that like he flies through this like asteroid belt. No matter how many times he gets hit with things, he still keeps propelling in the same direction. It's like, no, that should stop him. There's like he's not being propelled with that much force.
Well, I don't know. I think it has to match the force that you're hitting. I don't know. I haven't taken a physics class in like a long time. But I think it doesn't matter like your force versus the opposite force. Okay.
Because there's a moment here where Tim Robbins decides to like, thrust her out to the thing, right? Because they're all a bit too far away from it. And he wants to try and hook it with this. They've got this like a grapple hook thing that they're, tether that he's going to try and hook onto it. And
they look adorable.
And he's getting close to it, and he kept thrusting more and more. And I'm like, why'd you keep thrusting? Like, other than redirecting your course, because you have to like, maybe slightly change the angle. Because he keeps saying, I'm running out of fuel. Fuel's going down. I'm almost out of fuel. I want to have enough to get back. I'm like, but one little thrust should just...
Well, he doesn't have enough propulsion, though. Like, he doesn't have enough speed. So each time he does the thruster, he goes a bit faster, because he's already building upon the velocity that he's going.
Okay, I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to argue this too much. But as I understood it, that once you have a bit of momentum, it won't stop. There's nothing to stop you in space unless you hit something. So I didn't understand.
But you won't go faster, I don't think, unless you have something that makes you go faster. So you'd have to keep propelling yourself to gain momentum, to gain speed.
Okay.
I mean, you'll keep going until you hit something.
Because this is, I mean, not to besmirch Star Trek, because I know you love it, but it's actually kind of a problem in Star Trek whenever they say they're on impulse power, and they say, oh, we've got enough fuel to last impulse power. I'm like, what are you talking about? Once you've started impulse power, you're just going. Like, you're fine. If anything, the thing that'll take power is to stop, because you have to, thrust in the opposite direction, presumably, to,
Although, I think impulse power is still pretty fast in Star Trek. They have to be going, like, they're not going light speed, but...
Obviously, yeah.
I mean, they have to be going pretty fast.
That's what the warp drive's for. And I get that the warp drive takes energy. Of course that takes energy. It's a warp drive. Duh.
It needs dilithium.
Yes, dilithium, yes.
Whatever that is.
Yes. Like, we should probably talk about this, because I don't know anything about space physics, really. But there was so much of this.
I thought it was cute the way they were all, like, conga line together. And I thought it was funny that even though they're in space, they're all the same, like, right side up to each other. Like, why wouldn't they just be, like, rotating a bit? It never happened. It's like the Star Trek thing also, where the ships are always like at the same level. Like, shouldn't they be more like that?
Yeah, Discovery.
In space, it doesn't matter.
Discovery did it once in like its first episode, and then never did it again.
Yeah, I think people hated it because people just want to hate Discovery.
But that was the one good thing it did. It was like, no, this makes sense. That they wouldn't be up the right way up as each other.
Yeah, or I mean, they used to do it all the time in the original series, where they would be surrounded by enemies. So I'm like, just go up or down. You don't have to go straight forward or back.
Yes. Space.
You have to have a sphere to surround them.
Yeah, space is a three-dimensional thing.
I love Star Trek. It's flawless.
There's no gravity tethering you to one plane of combat. You can, diagonal even.
Yeah.
You got options. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just, it's one of those scenes where I'm sitting and watching it, and my rudimentary understanding of things tells me that this isn't quite adding up. And maybe the things that I'm questioning are actually fine, but I get the impression that if someone from NASA watches a scene like this, they're sitting cringing like constantly about various things that maybe I'm not even picking up on.
Yeah, don't show this to Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, because I'm sure it's full of shit. And you know, so much of it just feels like forced drama because he flies across, he hooks it on, he can't grab onto anything, so he drifts off, and it's like, okay, and like debating, do we go and get him? And not that I think there's a problem with the idea of like the wife's going to go get him even though she won't be able to come back, and he to save his wife says, I'm going to take the option away from you by like taking my helmet off and just killing myself. Like, I have no problem with that in concept, but these characters have been so sugary sweet that it just doesn't feel earned. It doesn't feel like a real like dark scene that this movie is earned to.
No, I agree. I thought it was actually kind of dark that he was going to just drift off and burn up in the atmosphere, and they were all going to have to watch, including his wife. Like this really slow descent into death. I thought that was like, well, that's pretty brutal. But instead they do like a quick way out, which, I mean, I understand, I just didn't think, I thought the ballsier thing would be to just let him float off and continue to talk to his wife till he died slowly.
Yeah, like I say, I don't think conceptually it's a bad idea in a vacuum, no pun intended. but like, it just, like I say, these characters have been so like glossy Hollywood, like likable, like nice to each other. And I say likable in that they're likable to each other, not so much that they're, I mean, it's not that they're dislikable or unlikable to us necessarily, but they're not that likable because they're not engaging, so they're just kind of bland.
Yeah.
But it felt kind of out of tone with what these characters have been.
Yeah, they all seem like they're, I don't know, like a part of a frat house or something. Like they all like each other, and Tim Robbins is like the team leader or the fraternity leader, and I don't know, he's fine. He just doesn't come off as real to me. Like even the relationship with his wife seems very forced.
And it's maybe something as well where, we talk about a lot of these tropes, like these problems to get into in space, having to patch things up, having to like boost around, and
I like watching that kind of stuff. I don't know what it is about the movie.
Well, so do I, but I think part of the problem is that we've seen these things all be done better in other movies. Like, like almost everything in this has been done better somewhere else, whether it was before or after. Like, obviously, a lot of the space survival stuff, Gravity's kind of the pinnacle for a lot of that.
Yeah.
In terms of ship stuff, there's the several examples that are really good. Mars stuff, you have The Martian, you have, it's like, and even though a lot of these things came later, it still kind of feels like, even at the time, it may not have had the problem of having as many good examples to compare it to, but it still has the problem of the glossiness and the hollowness, and just feeling like it never really justifies anything that it tries to pay off. And then you have the obvious problem of skipping over all these like important pieces, because like I say,
I know,
because they get to the the three that are remaining get to the the little resupply ship or whatever, and like they say, okay, let's get inside, and then it cuts to them on the surface of Mars.
Yeah,
it just cuts to them on this, like, oh, getting down to the surface was that easy, was it? Okay.
Once they got to the pod, they were fine.
Like, this would be fine if space travel was super normal, but when you're treating it as this is the first voyage, this is the first time, and it's really difficult, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that makes Alien so good, and we talked about Alien a lot when we reviewed Alien, but one of the little details that made it, even though space travel in Alien is really common, and it's treated like, okay, everyone does this now, they're truckers in space, it still treated the landing on the planet as if it was a bit rocky, like, oh, it's kind of difficult still. Like, this part's a little bit, just a little bit shaky.
It's called Mission to Mars.
Right.
This should be the big climactic scene.
And the idea of that is that, okay, it's relatively easy, by a gazillion compared to what it is now with space travel, because, going to the moon is such an effort. It takes thousands of people. It takes all these calculations. It's so risky. People die trying. Like, it's so difficult. So to just gloss over that, oh, we landed on Mars, it was fine.
Yep.
So, twice.
I mean, they weren't the first, they were the second, so it's not a big deal.
Oh yeah, because it was much easier a year later when they went.
I think the biggest egregious part, though, is that they get to Don Cheadle, who's been surviving on Mars for, I don't know, 6 months. or a year maybe.
Do you know what? This is the part.
The part that they skipped is the Martian movie.
Yeah, this is the part that is the most affected by hindsight, because the Martian existing makes Don Cheadle's survival off screen feel so
That's the movie
silly.
I want.
It makes it feel so easy and silly, because it's like, oh, he's got like a greenhouse that's working. Okay,
yeah,
shrug. That's it.
He didn't have to grow potatoes. He had his own. Yeah.
He's got a beard and he's a little bit loopy, and that's kind of it. That's the extent of it. And it is what it is. But and then the movie takes this turn, because because we saw this insane thing happen at the tornado. And we should mention at the end of that scene, there's like a little glimpse of there's like a statue or something underneath the sand. We don't get to see all of it.
The face on Mars. Have you ever seen photos of the face on Mars?
No.
There's a bunch of conspiracy theories about it. It just happens to be a crater that looks like a human face.
Yeah, of course.
So I assume that was the inspiration for this.
It's like people seeing Jesus in a toast. It's just whatever.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it does look like a face. But
yeah, sure, yeah. But so Don Cheadle starts talking about it attacked us and it wants something and blah blah blah, and they all look at him like he's crazy. But then he shows them the live footage of the face in the stand. And they're like, oh wait, that's someone built that. Okay, that's like finding a pyramid in Egypt.
In the beginning of the movie though, when they're at the base of the mountain and you can see them looking up, you can see the nose of the face sticking out. And nobody mentions anything about it. You don't see that that giant silver looking triangle sticking out of the top of the mountain.
It's very windy and a lot of sand flying. I think I get the impression that we can see that because it's a film, but the characters in their suits, they can't really make it out clearly from that height. I don't know.
Maybe I thought it was very odd that nobody brought it up in the film, because I mean they weren't at the base of the mountain in the beginning. They had to rover to it. Having
not seen this before and not knowing what this was about, so this entire this giant storm kind of attacking them was such a what the F moment for me.
Yeah.
That when I saw the tip sticking out, like you said, I thought it was going to just be a pyramid. I thought, oh, that's the tip of a pyramid. There's going to be a goddamn pyramid in Mars, and I already thought that was weird. I was like, wait, there's pyramids in this? What the hell? And I basically think, oh, I'm getting Stargate vibes from this now. What's going on? But no, he shows them this footage, and they're all like, wait, that's built. That's weird. And then he goes further into it where he's like, oh, hey, so I, there's sound waves coming from it, and I translated it into data, something, technobabble, and it's DNA. It's basically human DNA with a little bit missing, and they're like, oh, well, human DNA and ape DNA is only 3% different or something like that, and so it's just, it's just remarkably close. And then it's Gary Sinise, who, and probably the worst
spills M&Ms.
The worst moment of the movie, he spills M&Ms, he flashes back to when Jerry O'Donnell, sorry, not Chris O'Donnell's the bad Robin from the Batman and Robin.
Jerry O'Connell.
Yeah. Jerry O'Connell, yes. That's the one. Jerry O'Connell he's made the DNA strand out of M&Ms, and it's floating perfectly in the ship.
Yeah, I'm glad De Palma decided to remind the audience of that scene, we would have forgotten.
But it's already stupid, but the fact that it flashes back to it, and we even hear the dialogue say, I made my perfect woman in DNA. This is the DNA of my perfect, what does that even mean?
I guess the different colors represent the Gattaca.
Well, I guess. But the fact that he has this moment, and this is what makes him realize, wait, this is a test. The answer is to fill in the blank part, the part that completes it and makes it human. That's the test. And it's we have to do this. So they send out a little mini rover to go and play the sound, which makes sense. They didn't explain this because I was thinking how are you going to give the answer? But when it played the sound, I'm like, oh, this actually makes sense. I get it. You're playing it in the same language they transmuted it in. You're giving it to them in sound, which is how they gave it out. So that makes complete sense.
Dun, 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 dun.
There you go. It's ripping off Close Encounters as well. Good point.
Actually, there is a bit of that with Sinise's character.
It's about communication. Yes, I agree.
You shut your front door.
I love it when I get a call back to a really old joke. I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, come on. You can call back old jokes too.
I don't remember any.
They might pop up when you talk about a specific movie. You might something may click. It's fine.
Okay.
Anyway.
I'll spoil Memento in the next episode or something.
No.
I'll do it on the bonus episode.
You've been warned. I think I just have to start putting a blanket warning in every description for the Ace. I'm like, by the way, there may be spoilers for Memento. Just FYI, in every episode.
In the spoiler section, it's safe.
For this movie. So when this play the noise, the thing opens up and it's not like hostile looking. Like the idea being that before it attacked, because it was like unknown entities, like repel. But they go out, and this is it's very 2001. It's very Interstellar. This idea that something that built this, the ancient aliens, whatever they are, like built this, and like we're answering the call to the next stage in human evolution. Like it's taking a lot from other. It's movies. 2001
when we find the monolith.
And obviously, I know sometimes comments can get a little bit anal about this, and I know I'm bringing up Interstellar. I know that came later, so really all I'm saying is it took from 2001, and Interstellar also took from 2001. I'm just bringing up other examples that this is like makes you think of. I'm not saying it took from that.
I do sort of question the aliens' motivation by adding a security system to their front door like this.
It just kills everything. Yes,
it just kills humans, the people that they invited.
Yeah, it's weird. So the three of them, Jerry stays back, and the other three go up to the thing, and they go in, and this is where it's getting like ultra sad, because it's like this clean white room, again very 2001, and there's like
I like the look of it.
There's a Prometheus moment here, right? Now it is a bit better than Prometheus because at least they check that there's air, right? But then
there's a couple of Prometheus moments.
But then the woman's like, oh hey, let me check just in case there's any like gases or something that's is dangerous as well. And so she's like, you know what, nah, like I've waited my whole life for this, let's just do it. And she's like, oh F it. And they just all take their helmets off, and I'm like, okay, all right, you're supposed to be scientists, just sit.
Yeah.
just sit.
Seems like a risk.
Bit of a bold move. Okay, I get that. Okay, if they're invited, it's not hostile, like the atmosphere.
They have the scans that say that the air is.
Yeah.
By the way, I also hate their technology, this future tech.
Oh my god!
That like is able to analyze exactly what they want.
I forgot to mention this. I'm glad you brought this up. The scene where Tim Robbins is going out to the thing with the zip line, right?
Yeah.
See the messages their computer on their arm is giving them.
Yeah.
It was.
It's so specific to like their current scenario that it doesn't make sense.
It was like at one point when she's like flying out to get him, it actually tells her this is the point of no return. Like
I know. How does it know that? How does it know that that's what she's
based on?
She's going to make a trip back.
Yeah, based on what? How do you know where she's going? How do you know like how far it is back? Like how do you know any of this? That wasn't even the first time it happened in that scene, but that was the one that really upset me. I was like,
and they're not meant. Those things aren't even meant for like long distance travel. They're meant to just like go bounce around the ship a bit and do repairs. So why would she be able to do it at like the 75% fuel level? And
it's got a voice as well that sounds kind of cheesy and robotic. Like, the whole thing is just.
It sounds a little Evie from WALL-E.
Yeah, the whole thing is just. This is another trope. It's the trope of the computers just magically being able to do things that, and okay, maybe it's because we understand computers now better. So we're looking at this and go, this is stupid, but it is stupid.
It is stupid, yeah.
It's really stupid.
Almost every time she looked at her like wristband, I was like, I hate this.
Yeah. It seemed to have information it couldn't have. It seemed to understand what they were doing. It seemed to be able to give like recommendations based on like factors, like what are all the variables that exactly, like how do you know the variables, like what's going on. Anyway, so they're in this alien room, they're taking their helmets off, and there's actually like a shot from this movie that I've seen because it was in a compilation of shots that I really like on YouTube. There's a great video on YouTube. It's the Carl Sagan speech about the pale blue dot set to music by Mogwai, which is like an instrumental Scottish band. But it's really good. It's a really good like 5-minute thing where it's his speech playing over this music, and it's all set to clips of different movies, and it's really emotional actually. But the shot,
a lot of his writings can be.
Yeah, but the shot of like the three astronauts walking into essentially the planetarium, essentially. I mean, it's a bit more high tech than that, but that's they're walking into like a diagram of the solar system in like hologram form, and that shot I remember seeing from that. But that's
I actually enjoyed this part of the film.
I enjoy this scene.
I think it looks good. I know we get like a look at the alien and it looks CGI, but for the most part, what they're trying to do here and what they're trying to say, like I do enjoy.
the alien being CG looking is okay because it's a hologram, so I can buy that the holograms will look CG, not that the alien itself looks CG. And I know that's like a weird justification, but it actually does kind of make sense in my head.
I thought about that too.
I like this scene on its own. I don't think it actually fits the movie that it's attached to in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, if the rest
of the movie had like this style, that would be great.
I know. The movie, like, it doesn't feel like it was thematically setting up for like unlocking the secret of humanity or anything like that. So this comes out of nowhere. The actual like revelation that Mars was once, because and I noticed this before they mentioned it, because you see, like, you can see that, you can see Venus and Mercury, and you see Earth and the Moon, and you see the fourth planet, and you're like, that looks really blue and green. What the hell is this planet? That's not Mars. That's not really Mars. And then they look at it, is that Mars? And it's like, oh, this is what Mars used to be. And then we see, like, you know, it was hit by something, you know, kind of
an asteroid or something, yeah.
And we see like all these ships evacuating. So the idea that the Martian population evacuated. As a DC Comics fan, the idea that one Martian was left behind, I was like, it was actually one ship. It wasn't a Martian, but I was thinking of Martian Manhunter because he's like the last Martian who's like survived the disease. And I was nerding out a little bit. I was nerding out a little bit.
Is the Martian Manhunter from Mars?
Yeah.
Okay.
It used to be populated. There was green and white Martians, and they were at war. There was like a racial war between green and white Martians. This is the whole thing.
I guess all civilizations can't get past that point for some reason.
Yeah. Basically, they just like, it turns out that the DNA that makes up here, the reason why they have it is because this Martian, or Martians in general, invented it and basically planted a seed on Earth. So this is why we don't know any of this, because this all happened before the dawn of, you know, this is the start of evolution.
Yeah.
This started
the
life.
Cambrian explosion.
Yeah. This started life on Earth, and this, I will say, the CG for this is really, really bad. Where we see like alligators and then like other animals, and we see like a hunter. And
they're kind of like anamorphing into each other, but at the same time, this is also like a CGI presentation.
Kind of, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But it's like it's showing like just the world forming, and eventually, obviously, humans. And it's like,
that is where it's the worst though, when you see like people, like cave people running after like mammoths and stuff, and the running looks so awkward.
And you know, these ideas are really big and bold, and it is very 2001. Okay, so this is the especially since it gets to the point where the whole idea of this is that they want one of the humans to come to where they are now. So, and you know, Gary Sinise is the obvious choice. You know, his wife is dead. He's got nothing to go back for, so he's going to like stay behind, and he go to the, you know, he becomes the guy in 2001 who's going to advance to the next stage of evolution, right?
He volunteers.
Yes. And those ideas are solid. I mean, again, we've seen them done better before. This is a bit more, you know, 2001 is a very abstract, and you have to think about it and really get the idea of what it is. Whereas this is more...
Find out on our thoughts soon.
Yeah, very soon. Whereas this is more in your face, it's sort of spelled out. But it is a fun sequence, and it's definitely the best scene in the whole movie. I don't think it actually fits the movie it's attached to, though. It came out of left field, and I'm like, wait, we're doing what now?
And why are the Martians like murdering people outside of the walls of this ship? Like, is that there in case another type of animal gets there, or an alien gets there? Are there other aliens that are hostile?
Are they worried about the people from Venus that we've not found yet coming? And you know.
Or what if the crocodiles became sentient and evolved? We're like, no crocodiles on Mars.
I suppose the point is that they have to make sure it's intelligent life, because obviously it doesn't start.
They got to Mars.
Isn't
that enough?
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. That does prove some level of intelligence, I'll admit. I mean, maybe for all they knew, eventually it would do. Maybe they didn't know what it would evolve into, so maybe they were expecting like, maybe like the monstrous like dinosaurs, or well, that was post dinosaurs, but
maybe the raptors got there.
Yeah, the raptors like grew.
They are very clever.
Grew wings and then like didn't have to breathe.
If they had another 65 million years, maybe they would have evolved into a space traveling dinosaur.
Of course. I love the visual of a raptor with like glasses on and like a hat and
the Velociraptor.
Yeah, the Velociraptor. Oh, I like that.
That's not me. I didn't make it up.
I know, but
the
I like
internet did.
The Velociraptor. I haven't heard that somehow, but I like it.
Well, there's a whole new search engine that you can.
Yeah.
Velociraptor.
So he stays behind. He sort of goes into this sort of like watery tube, and it's like he's worried for a second, but then it becomes clear that this is special liquid that he can breathe in. That the Martians.
This is Galaxy Quest, by the way. This is how they travel in Galaxy Quest.
That's
because the goo like comes up through the tube.
That's true. That's just true. This only came out a year after it though, so I'm going to assume it's a coincidence rather than any inspiration taken.
It's like the exact same shot though.
Sure. Yeah, but like,
I mean, I like it. It works. I like the idea that he's like this tube he's in is filling up with a jelly fluid thing that he's holding his breath because he doesn't want to drown. And then it's not to the point of like, I'm going to die anyway, that he inhales the goo.
Yeah. Well, so the others like race back to get to the ship. They lift off. They see the ship that, you know, the alien ship that Sinise is in flying off. And I love the idea that Jerry O'Connell's like didn't get to see any of this. So when they tell him later, because they've not had a chance to tell him yet, that he's going to be like, what, really? Come on, guys. But he sees the ship fly by, so at least he saw something to justify some of it.
He's the Michael Collins of this group, because there was, I think that's his name, Michael Collins, Buzz Aldrin, and
Neil Armstrong.
Neil Armstrong. But Michael Collins had to stay in the pod while everyone else went on the moon.
I love that the one you struggled with was Neil Armstrong, which is the one that everyone else would say first.
I was thinking, like, what's Buzz's last name?
Lightyear.
Buzz Lightyear. That's the only thing I could think of too. Aldrin.
Well, first of all, I think it's weird how quickly it comes up saying the end, because they literally say, "I hope he has a nice trip." The end. Like, it's really abrupt. But I couldn't help but think, like, is anyone going to believe a word of this when they get back? Because this is the other thing. They're just like, okay, they're back in orbit, so therefore they're safe. They can go back to space. Because there's a line right at the start of the film when we first see them on the space station, where they say that if Don Cheadle survived, well, the space pod thing is basically autopilot. Like, even one astronaut could take it back to Earth safely. And I'm like, okay, you're hand waving that just so that at the end we don't have to worry about them having to get home. We can just sort of, you said it's easy, it's fine, whatever.
But they also don't have food.
Yeah, it's
they
like,
threw out all their supplies in order to fit everybody in the pod.
I assume they brought some of the Don Cheadle's
the hydroponic
garden.
labs.
Yeah.
The poo potatoes.
Yeah, because there's still 3 of them. You're right. They had to to fit 3 of them. They had to throw out some stuff. So, maybe this is bigger though, because this isn't the same size as the other one that they went down with. Because they've fixed the thing that Don Cheadle already had on the planet, and they've lifted up in that. So
I missed that part. I thought they were escaping in the same thing.
No, because they brought like a new motherboard to fix his thing. That was like part of the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also, when the ships are taking off, like the Earth pod almost gets hit by the Martian one, but it looks like they came from like 2 different hemispheres of Mars. Like, how far away were they from each other? Because one's like going this way and the other one's going like this way. Like, they had to be pretty far away on the planet for that to work.
Yeah, and of course we have to mention, because we promised we would, when they're saying goodbye, when Gary's staying behind, is that Connie Nielsen, who I think every time we've talked about her since the start, we've referred to her as either the woman or the female character, because she's that bland. We just like that's what we've said every time. I noticed that like halfway through, that's what we kept saying. But she pulls out the little chain with the little ship, the little Flash Garden ship, says, "He'd won you to have this," and
the Red Hat Award, huh?
Yeah, yes, the Red Hat Award from Cosmos. Even though even though I do like this scene largely, this part was laughably like, no, this is stupid. You've made this too Hollywood and stupid now.
They couldn't have made it like a cooler looking necklace.
I don't know. It's one of those things. Like, obviously, you want setup and payoff. That's the makings of a good story. But sometimes, like, it can feel a little bit writing 101, where you've set this thing up in the opening act, which is clearly just there to have a sentimental like meaning at the end. That just feels a little bit too obvious. I think that's the difference between serviceable writing and good writing, is when it feels that way, and I think that's what we get here. So, made me laugh.
There's some unintentionally funny moments in this movie, and unfortunately, a lot of them center around the female.
The female. Yes. What Which, I mean, I guess maybe sums up like how important she feels in the plot. That's even how you're referring to her as.
Yeah, I mean, I think someone just said we need to have a girl on the crew so no one can say we're not sexist in the future. But then they just wrote her super tropey.
Well, that's the thing, you know, when you analyze the writing, it would be less sexist to just not have her.
It would be.
So, and I'm not saying that's the good. The response is to write better, not take her away. That's not, you know, I'm making that clear. But the irony is that yes, it would actually be less sexist to just not have her. Than it is to have her like this.
I mean, at least she didn't like take her shirt off or anything.
True. That's very true.
But she is like the nagging wife in the beginning, and then yeah, is just there, like you said, to bring sympathy to the guy, or to set up why are we doing a thing so that Gary Sinise can provide the answer.
Yep. So
he should be smarter.
So yeah, this movie, which starts off feeling like it wants to, like, you know, be relatively grounded, feel like a more, like, what if we did Apollo 13's like version of going to Mars kind of like movie, and then it ends with Gary Sinise flying off in an alien spaceship to somewhere else to meet Martians,
to the planet beyond.
I think it's kind of funny though, because I mean, they kind of stopped talking about this like after like half an hour, but there's a lot of talk in the first half hour about, oh, the reason why we're doing this is to maybe colonize it, right? But I think it's kind of funny that they're planning on maybe colonizing Mars if they can, even though they talk about how there's like storms that cover the whole planet that last like all year. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, good job, good luck. But
yeah, right.
I do think it's kind of funny that we find out the Martians already left and colonized somewhere else because Mars was screwed, and I don't know, it's like, nah, Martians already ruined the planet, sorry.
Yeah, why wouldn't the Martians go to Earth when their planet was done? I mean, it's blue and green also.
Something in the atmosphere? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they just wanted to be more adventurous and they wanted to plant their seed. They wanted to like do an experiment. So that'll be your petri dish.
They didn't go to Earth at all. I mean, they left their DNA. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
But they flew off. Which I should mention as well that the Martian looks kind of like a generic alien with a big head and the eyes. Like, you know, it's not like they went with like a unique alien design. It's just very much based on the classic.
I thought the ship was a kind of cool design. Like the actual head looked kind of neat. Not of the alien, but of the face on Mars.
Yeah.
Although I thought that looked all right.
The whole thing's not the ship though, because the ship kind of comes from within inside it. Like that, the actual head itself is just like a shell for it. Yeah.
Right. But I like the design of that. I thought that was a cool one. I think it's based off something. Off some like German sculptor.
That sounds reasonable. I will admit though, it's hard not to, even though I think it's cool, the idea of finding something that was clearly made on Mars, because that's a mysterious thing, and I don't think the movie really plays with the cosmic mystery of that enough. It feels like it just jumps to like the conclusions, but I do like the idea of like finding that. But I will say that seeing like a statue sort of head on Mars did make me think of Prometheus a little bit. Little Prometheus.
Also, like the founders or whatever leaving their sperm on our planet.
Oh, it's very true. Do you think Ridley Scott ripped off Mission to Mars when he was making Prometheus? Again, and speaking of directors who... Well, actually, Ridley Scott's a bit of a weird case, because Ridley Scott...
Well, I mean, he made The Martian. That's a very good movie.
He has one great example of the last, like, 10, 15 years, but he was always kind of up and down, though. It's not like he always made gold back in his, like, heyday, either.
That's true.
He made a lot of gold, don't get me wrong. Ridley Scott has a lot of great movies, but he has some...
I like Thelma and Louise.
That's a good movie. I concur. He's got some low-key ones. I remember Matchstick Men being an enjoyable little movie, or there's a Michael Douglas like thriller called, I think it's Black Rain is the name of it, from like the end of the 80s, that was just pretty solid. He's got a lot of smaller ones that are kind of gems as well, but he's also got like, you know,
the big ones,
the stinkers and stuff. Yeah, so.
Oh yeah.
Whereas Brian De Palma, much like John Carpenter,
I guess they just had an era and then they were done.
Yeah. There's definitely a few other directors that kind of falls into the mold, but these are the two biggest examples. These are the two examples where they were so strong for like decades, and then you know, and De Palma in many ways was referred to as kind of like a successor to Hitchcock. There was a lot of, and sometimes,
oh yeah, he's very inspired by Hitchcock.
Sometimes to the point where people said that he was just a rip-off of Hitchcock, and I don't think that's fair. I think he was clear.
He could be inspired.
Yeah, I mean, he was very similar, but you could definitely feel like he was given his own like 70s and 80s like edge to like the sort of style Hitchcock had, and I think that's okay. Like, I mean, there's always room for a good kind of evolution of what Hitchcock was doing in filmmaking. Like, if a new director pops up in the next like decade who, oh yeah, this was like a modern version of like a Hitchcock movie, I'm not going to be mad about that. Like,
No.
yeah, if
I'll go see it. And if it's Disturbia, I'll be very mad.
Oh yeah, Disturbia sucked. But I will respect, because this is the thing, like, the Palma movies are very slow and stylish. This movie does not feel slow. It's, I mean, not in this. And when I say that, I don't mean it's like it feels like it's constantly moving.
It's 2 hours, but it feels like it skips a lot.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm not saying that as a compliment. I'm not saying it's fast and that it's well paced. I'm saying that it feels like it's rushing through plot beats. I don't feel the weight of anything because it's moving too quickly. So I mean, we're pretty much done, but I just, you know, it's just disappointing.
Yeah, it's a shame.
All right then, what are you going to rate Mission to Mars?
Well, after our conversation, I've sort of knocked it down a point. But I mean, when I watched it, I was sort of clinging to the stuff I liked because I want to like the Palma films. But this is so not him and not his style, and I think maybe he just wanted to make his Kubrick epic and it failed. Because maybe he was reaching too high.
It just feels, it feels just a little bit too De Palma, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, I do like the stuff on Mars. I like the effects on Mars. Like, there's a lot of practical effects that I appreciate. And you know, honestly, some of the stuff in space looks really good too for the CGI that they had to do, or in the model work. Yeah,
there's not bad effects. I do think sometimes when when they're standing in front of the storm near the start, there's very green screen looking. You know, there's definitely moments where you can feel the limitations of the effects.
Yeah. But I appreciate the designs of the ships and how they do look like not too distant future. I mean, we're not there yet. You know, they missed it, but or we missed it rather.
I think we have cooler tech than they do.
Sure.
They were so
we don't have the hamster wheel yet.
No.
I want the hamster wheel in space.
They were so unimaginative about showing us any future tech that we actually feel more futuristic today, despite the fact, other than the fact that we're not going to Mars, we feel more futuristic than this movie presents 2020, which I guess makes us feel good. It makes us feel a little bit superior. Like, haha, we're better than you, movie. We did this.
Well, I'm sure you're gonna rate it lower than me, but I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10.
I don't know if I am, or at least not much lower. I think like it's not horrendous. It's not. It's a watchable, cheesy Hollywood movie that never aspires to, or aspires but feels miserably to be anything more. And it does kind of feel like he's phoned it in multiple ways. It feels like De Palma phoned this in terms of story, and then it does kind of just take things from 2001 without really doing anything super interesting with them. It feels phoned in terms of direction, because other than one or two moments, it just feels like a generic, quick cut Hollywood movie. All of his style's kind of missing. The characters feel kind of phoned in their execution. Like, everything just feels mediocre for the most part. In some cases, laughably bad. I think I was coming into this thinking 5, but like you, I think I've actually talked myself down a little bit. And I really have to emphasize just how inappropriate the music is. And I think the music almost knocks it down a whole point on its own, if not more than that, because it just constantly pointed out that the scenes weren't working, because it kept trying to make them something they weren't.
Yeah. But I would suggest, like, if you like Morricone, I don't think this is a bad score. I just think it's not.
Sure.
It doesn't fit the movie.
Yeah, I feel that way about some scores. Like I really like some of the music from the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and they're not good movies. And the music's not necessarily appropriate at times to the movies, but I like the sound of the music on their own. You know, it's fine to listen to.
Yeah. Yeah, I might check out the score for this one.
Man of Steel is a great example. Hans Zimmer's score for Man of Steel is fantastic. I mean, I like that movie that much, but you know, it's great stuff.
The movie kind of misses the point, but
yeah. Oh, the movie does, but and that's actually the sad thing, is the music doesnn't. Is that you can hear like that piano theme that plays in that for Clark. It's like, that is perfect for Clark on the farm. It's perfect, but the movie just doesn't, get the point. It's sad. Anyway, so I am going to go. I'm going to give it a 4. 4 out of 10. Not that much lower than you, just one full point.
Yeah.
But I think it is such a mishandling of everything involved, and it feels so phoned in, and it is disappointing coming from a director that I like, coming from, you know, some cast that I really like. Yeah, I think. I mean, Sinise's fine. I don't necessarily have a strong opinion on him. I think Don Cheadle.
Yeah, I like him.
Don Cheadle and Tim Robbins I like a lot though from other things. So.
Yeah, Tim Robbins can be really. I mean, yeah, he's Shawshank, so everyone's gonna love him. But I don't know. He always surprises me when he's in a movie. Like, I don't know what version of Tim Robbins I'm gonna get. Like, he gets real goofy in a lot of his roles.
Do you know what they should have done for this? The poster should have just been him. Do you know the pose when he's out in the rain? They should have done that, but in the astronaut suit on Mars.
Just Andy Dufresne on Mars.
Yeah. I just call it the Martian Redemption, and that's it. You're done. You're done. It'll sell a bajillion tickets. Everyone.
I mean, wasn't Shawshank like kind of a failure?
That's the point. Everyone will feel guilty because when they later found out it was great, they're going to all go watch this Martian Shawshank movie, and then they'll be disappointed. They'll be like, "Shit, I supported the wrong one because Shawshank was good and this one wasn't. I should have supported that instead." But that, you know, neither here nor there. I almost want like a new audio track with this, like Morgan Freeman, like the first time I met Andy Dufresne.
Crawling through some ship pipes on Mars.
In fact, his name was it was Red. You can even work that into the Red Planet. Look, nice. There you go. It's all working.
Yeah, the Red Planet on this was just like some field in Vancouver that they painted all the rocks red. They went through like, I don't know, like tens of thousands of gallons of red paint. That's crazy.
Surely they could have just digitally like colored it differently.
Well, I guess they just wanted to make it realistic.
I guess. I feel like a tint would have on the image would have done you probably, but who am I to judge? Do I want to waste a bunch of red paint?
I appreciate it. I appreciate the look of it.
I mean, it's this the
and whatever rock quarry that is now painted red.
I mean, the rocks aren't going to be harmed by some paint. It'll chip away eventually. It's no big deal. It's just rocks.
Yeah, so that's just not lead based.
Yeah, it's not like
Canada will be fine.
It's not like they wanted like, oh, we want some exotic animals, so we'll paint like a cow green like that. That'd be like, oh, that's bad for the cow. I'm not going to be fighting for rocks' rights. Yeah, it's a rock. It's fine.
I am an environmentalist, but I don't see a big deal about the paint unless it's lead based, which they shouldn't be. No,
I think it's fine. I think the rocks will be fine. I'm sure those rocks from 2000 are still alive today, living a happy life in a field in Vancouver.
A red field.
I doubt it's still red. I bet it's all. I bet weather and conditions have just.
Yeah, it seems risky for Vancouver. They get a lot of rain.
Yeah.
They must all had to film the scenes really close to each other.
Yeah, I'm sure it's all gone now. But anyway, so if you made it this far in the discussion, I think the word probably has to be Flash Gordon, the phrase even. Yeah, Flash Gordon.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, if you made it this far, put that in the comments. Tara is going to do her pose for the thumbnail, so here we go. 3, 2, 1, pose. You are number 1?
I'm pointing up to Mars.
Ah, okay.
It's above me right now. I can sense it.
Yes, because relatively speaking, Mars could be below, could be to the left, could be to the right. Depending on where we are in the spin, the rotation of the Earth, where we are in the cycle around the Sun, where Mars.
Well, yeah, so it's above me, so it's like below you now, maybe a little to the left. We're on different parts of the planet.
I understand that part. Yes, I'm not confused by that part. But yeah, okay. So there you go. That's Mission to Mars. Next time, though, we're out of this 2020 thing, so I mean, not the year itself, of course, we got a little bit left, but we're out of this 2020 theme, so we're actually doing a newer film from this year that I've been looking forward to checking out. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be good per se, but it is from the director, the son of David Cronenberg. I believe his name is Brandon Cronenberg. His film called Possessor.
Doesn't sound like a science fiction movie.
It definitely is. I mean, it's one that maybe could veer into a bit of horror as well, but it sounds sci-fi from everything I've heard or seen. I'm expecting an intense film, so hopefully we've got some juicy talking points next time. All right. So that's what we're going to do next time.
Should have a bonus episode up soon, so check out Patreon.
We should, yeah. That should be... In fact, the bonus episode hopefully might even be up. If well, no, maybe after this one. But yeah, it shouldn't be too long after this one if it is. And don't worry, if Possessor ends up being really intense for people, and if you're mad that we made you watch an intense film, assuming this is as intense as it seems it is to me, don't worry.
This movie is.
We're following it up with something a bit more lighthearted. Kevin Bacon's in it. It's fine, right?
Oh, okay, yeah, I know. It was the Patreon vote winner.
Yes. There may be monsters that come from underground, and Kevin Bacon in a cowboy hat for like almost.
You've never seen this movie either.
Yes, I have.
Oh, I thought you said you hadn't seen it before.
I've never seen the sequels. I've seen the first one though.
Oh, okay. So then, yeah, you know what you're getting into.
Of course.
It's one of my favorite FUs in a movie.
I don't remember the FU. It's been a while, so I don't remember specific
You'll notice
points
it when you watch it.
Okay. All right, well, that's been the Atomic Cinema Experiment. This has been episode 93 of the show. So thank you very much for being with us for almost 100 episodes, and you know we're coming up on that 100. In fact, if my calculations are correct, 96, 97, 98, 99, there's a very good chance that the first episode in January will be episode 100. The first episode of the new year.
Well, that's convenient.
Well, the first one we record anyway. The last one we record may actually technically come out at the start of January, and then it'll be the next one that's episode 100. But okay. Yes,
that's all right. We'll start the new year off right.
Yes. We're starting off with the countdown.
The shambles of 2020.
And then episode 100. That's what you're looking forward to. So, in fact, in some ways, this movie was 20 years anniversary of when it came out. You know, it came out in 2000. In a weird way, our episode 100 is also kind of a 20th anniversary. Not of when it came out, but you know what I'm saying. It's 2001. 2001 is episode 100, okay? Right?
Yeah.
You get the idea. Okay. So we mentioned Patreon earlier. Go over there and support us if you can. It's a big help. We also mentioned, of course, liking, subscribing, all that jazz on YouTube. All of it does help. Catch us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. Tara, would you like to promote any other content that we do on MailFuzz TV?
Well, if you're a fan of epic long-form storytelling in science fiction, why not check out our Babylon 5 reviews, which we are doing from season 1 still. We're only in the beginning. So if you've never seen it, or if you're Babylon 5 curious, or if you're already a fan, come check it out with us.
What is the year in that?
2258.
And what's the name of the show?
Babylon 5.
And
well, unless you're watching The Gathering, then it's 2257.
Yes. But I mean, if you don't get what we just did there, it's a reference to Babylon 5. You're fine. So there you go. That is pretty much us. So thank you very much for joining us. It is actually kind of a long episode. I guess Mission to Mars gave us a lot of meat to chew on.
Well, we wanted to talk about the Palma films.
Sure. Why wouldn't we? It's great. So it's probably the only one we'll get to talk about on this show, because
definitely.
I don't think we did any other sci-fi. So there you go. Thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer at Salsa.
Be back in a flash.